Welcome back. We're looking at the verdict in Myanmar against Nobel Peace Laureate Aung San Suu Kyi and discussing the international repercussions of the sentence. Joining me from Exeter in the United Kingdom is Dr. Maung Zani, a research fellow at the London School of Economics Centre for the Study of Global Governance and coordinator of the Burma Research Initiative. From Copenhagen, Anders Østergaard, a writer and director of the award-winning documentary Burma VJ about the 2007 protests in Myanmar. And here with me in Washington, D.C. is Jared Genser, president of Freedom Now, a non-profit organization that works to free prisoners of conscience worldwide and an international lawyer for Aung San Suu Kyi. Gentlemen, welcome back to all of you. Anders Østergaard, I'm going to start with you, and I want to play a short excerpt from the documentary Burma VJ, and then I have a question about it.
We are trying really hard to get her, but the people cover and protect her. It was a big movement for us and a big mistake for them because they did so many brutal things in front of people and we could document that.
And as that was some very graphic footage there of a demonstration being broken up on the streets of Myanmar. There's been very sharp international criticism over the past 24 hours from certain quarters, mainly from Western nations, on this sentence that's been meted out to Aung San Suu Kyi. What has been the response to the documentary that you've made, Burma VJ, from people who've seen it?
Well, I think we managed to offer people some context to all the footage that we already saw once. We all saw the monks some 2 years ago marching through the streets, and we were impressed by that. What the film had to offer was some more context, some more insight on what was actually going on, how the Burmese people were breaking with the fear, which was a very important and interesting process. So I feel we had not introduced this issue at all. I feel we have reigniting an interest which is already there and was looking for a new occasion to be discussed.
Dr. Zani, when one looks at the Western response to what is going in Myanmar, sanctions have been imposed. They've been tightened in certain respects. We have an email here from one of our viewers, Asim Ghani, and he says, what goes unmentioned is China's dirty role in the ordeal of Aung San Suu Kyi. China is deeply complicit in the oppression and crimes of Burma's usurper military junta in exchange for the naval base that it has in Burma. So when I mention those sanctions, are they really being diluted or compromised by cooperation by countries like China, by India, by Thailand?
Well, I think it's not just the Asian economic powerhouses such as China, India, and say Thailand, South Korea, that needs to be mentioned. Not just these Asian economic investors and political powerhouses that are complicitous, but you've got the entire global natural resource extractive industry, like i.e. gas and oil companies and mining companies from Western democratic countries such as France, United States, Canada, Australia. And so what the Burmese people are up against is not just like rising economic powers that are in cahoot with the Burmese generals, but with the entire global gas and oil industry that finds it honorable, to basically drill on the back of the Burmese people. And so, in that type of like very tight economic and political alliance that the Burmese generals have been able to build, the Western liberal voices absolutely have made no impact on the Burmese body politics.
Jared Genser here with me in Washington. Just received an SMS. I would say it's provocative, it's unsympathetic to Aung San Suu Kyi. It's from Fateh in Tunisia, and it says, I can't understand this hypocrisy. We're worried about a woman in a luxurious house and forget about millions of people without water and food.
Actually, I don't find that provocative at all. I actually agree completely. And in fact, this is a point that Aung San Suu Kyi has repeatedly made herself. She said that she is okay with being a symbol of the democracy movement, but it's critical not to forget the suffering of the 47 million people, and she's repeatedly said, which is much worse than what she has personally been through. I mean, she has had some tough times, there's no doubt about it, but the military dictatorship is quite brutal in its treatment of its own people. They've burned 3,000 villages to the ground in eastern Burma, created more than 1 million refugees, 800,000 people in forced labor, systematic rape of ethnic minority women, spending 25% of their GDP on national defense and less than 2% on health and education combined. This is what has driven the country into poverty, and this is what the Burmese people are suffering from, and this is what Aung San Suu Kyi would like to see her people freed from. So she herself actually, I think, would agree with that statement. Don't just talk about her freedom and the need for her freedom, but talk about what she actually symbolizes, which is the oppression of her people.
Dr. Zani, there's been some talk recently about Myanmar's links with North Korea and its nuclear ambitions. Do you attach any credence to those reports?
Oh yeah, like among the Burmese researchers as well as Burma watchers in the region as internationally, we have long known the Burmese junta's nuclear ambitions, and so there is no smoking gun as yet of the Burmese North Korea nuclear ties, but there are up to 22 different arms manufacturing sites across the country. The regime is estimatedly, the estimates of regime spending the revenues run up to say like $15 billion over the past 10 years. They are training 2,000, 3,000 Burmese nuclear scientists, all uniformed military officers. But in a country where the regime is unable to produce even toothpaste for its own people, and they are going for nuclear technology for ostensibly for medical research purposes, but our hospitals don't even have multivitamins and antibiotics, and this regime is going for nuclear technology. And so that should cause serious alarm in the region, and it has. And the fact that there is no smoking gun as yet on this issue should not make us less should not make us take this issue less seriously.
If I could just add a quick point on top of what Zarni says, and I agree with him completely. The other thing to keep in mind is that despite the substantial poverty in the country, with a large percentage of the population as subsistence farmers, it actually is not the case that the junta is poor. They have substantial natural resources, oil and gas, gemstones, and timber. They actually have, according to the best economic data available, probably around $5 billion of cash reserves hidden on their balance sheet through false exchange rates, basically inflated exchange rates. And they're making several $billion a year from oil and gas deals. And this is at the same time that they're hiding this money on their balance sheets, not spending it on their own people, and waving their hand after Cyclone Nargis, asking for $10 billion of international aid. And so one of the things I personally believe the international community should do is to push for as much humanitarian aid to the people as possible through international NGOs, and particularly across the porous border between Thailand and Burma. But at the same time, also make demands of the Burmese junta that they actually spend the resources they have, which are sizable and growing, on their own people's development.
Anders Østergaard, there's been...
Jared, I think that...
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to add to what Jared was saying. It's not just the cash reserves that they're sitting or like putting in there under the mattresses and using them for nuclear and other weapons technology imports, but they're engaged in barter trade with like countries like North Korea or Iran. Like basically giving out concessions and trading everything that is tradable through exchange in exchange for missiles and other nuclear technology. And so I think like we need to raise the regime's purchasing power by bringing in like the country's resources that are not yet in cash form.
Anders Østergaard, I want to ask you this. The situation in Myanmar in general, and particularly the situation around Aung San Suu Kyi, has generated a tremendous amount of international interest and sympathy. Very recently in Dublin, U2 did a concert to commemorate Aung San Suu Kyi and to bring to the world the situation that she is facing. Listening to what the other two guests have been saying, and in your contacts with the dissidents in Myanmar, do you feel that this regime is isolated, or is it just business as usual as far as they are concerned?
Is it getting more isolated, is your question?
Yes.
Yeah, well, they are under pressure. Although it's not very visible, my feeling is that they are under pressure. I felt the whole process against Aung San Suu Kyi was really quite clumsily handled, and that they ultimately managed to make a celebration of her personality and of her importance in the upcoming elections, whether she'll take part or not. I think they're sensitive because ultimately China will be sensitive to opinions on Burma in the long run. As such, I'm an optimist. I think they can be manipulated, they can be impressed, and they were certainly impressed by the media coverage that the VJs, which are the subject of my film, with the coverage they managed to send out to the rest of the world. That is proven by the fact of the effort they're making to chase down these cameramen and to stop these images going out of the country. They can be impressed.
Dr. Zani, we just have about 20 seconds, and I'm wondering if you could tell us, does the focus on Aung San Suu Kyi draw international attention away from other serious problems that exist inside Myanmar?
Well, Aung San Suu Kyi and the other issues cannot or should not be either or situation. And you know, I think the key is to really focus on the well-being of the people and what it needs to empower the Burmese themselves. The fact of the matter is the Burmese people need help.
Okay, I'm afraid I'm going to have to interrupt you there. We've run out of time. Thank you to all of you for being with us, and thank you for watching. On the next show, 12 years after the war with Rwanda, how is the Democratic Republic of Congo faring? We'll see you next time.